Yeah, Bill Evans from Prudential. So, Bill?
Again, my name is Bill Evans from Prudential Retirement. I'll apologize, I'm from Boston. If you need any translation, just let me know. But it does make us brothers because I hate the Yankees more than anything. And I will say one more thing. Please don't anyone take this the wrong way, but as I look at the room, I don't think we have any new enrollees or folks just looking to join the 401k. Is it a safe bet to say that the majority of you are already in it or have been in it for a long time? Yep. Perfect. So I can skip some slides, which will make it more I'll say, applicable and appealing to you. So, like Jared, I have to have my disclosure slide here. The main message here is that me, and Prudential, when you call us, we're not allowed to provide advice. We can't tell a participant, we can't tell you where to invest your money or what to do, or don't do that because we don't know your tax situation. All those types of things, we're not allowed to give you specific advice, but we do provide a lot of education that helps you get most of the way there. So take that into consideration as we're going through. I'm going to fast forward a few of these pages. Again, the advantages, I think you know them, you've been in the plan, we can skip over that. The enrollment pieces, I'll mention here, why, what are the benefits? You know them, you've been in the plan. I'll mention a couple things that may have changed over the last few years if you haven't been paying close attention. Under the first bullet, you'll see the last item is Roth. So there was the addition a few years ago about Roth contributions, which those are after-tax contributions versus your 401k, which would be pre-tax contributions. The difference being, and I'll show you a little bit more detail shortly, the difference primarily there is the money goes in after tax, but all the earnings grow pre-tax. So when you take a distribution, the earnings on those Roth contributions are not taxed. The traditional 401k contributions go in on a pre-tax basis. The earnings grow on a pre-tax basis, but when you retire, you pay tax. Okay? And I'll show you a slide as we go forward. The other thing, and I'm going to key on this a bit, the third bullet about flexible distribution options. I'll say the biggest misunderstanding that I see with participants in the plan is that when someone retires or leaves employment from UPS, they think they have to take their money out of the plan. That is absolutely not the case. If you have $1,000, or I should say less than $1,000, and you don't do anything, we're going to cash out your account. But if you have more than $1,000, you do not have to take your money out. So while there's timing associated with the pension plans, and how soon you have to submit your applications and when you'll get it, for the 401k, there is no requirement that you take your money out as long as you have more than $1,000 there. So if you don't need it, there are not very many plans that I see out there that have fees as low as this plan does. So if you don't need it, and you have your brother-in-law who's a semi-professional financial advisor whispering in your ear to say, let me take over managing your 401k for you, roll it over to this account, it's unlikely that you'll be able to get fees as low as this plan can get. There's 165,000 account balances in this plan. This plan has a lot more buying power than you have to go buy an individual rollover somewhere. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so I'm going to skip right over the enrollment because you're already in. Some of this will be applicable here, so your annual contributions. Every year the IRS decides what's available or what's eligible to be contributed, the maximum that can be contributed to a 401k. For 2019, it's $19,000. We haven't seen what the limit will be for next year, but the last few, typically they go up in $500 increments. So if they change it for next year, it might go to $19,500. If you're over 50, you're able to put an additional $6,000 in, so that $19,000 becomes $25,000. Okay? And every year that is subject to change. It may not be, it may not change, but it could be changed. This is back to what I mentioned earlier, the difference between Roth and pre-tax contributions. So again, you can see the column of pre-tax and Roth. Your contributions are taxed in the pre-tax situation when you take that money out. For Roth, it's already after tax, and it goes into your account at that point. When you take the distribution, pre-tax is not tax-free. You pay taxes. The IRS is going to get it one way or the other. and then Roth, all that money that grows. So what we tend to see is a lot of younger folks especially are very interested in Roth. They have a long time to let those earnings grow and potentially see a tax benefit when they do take their money out. But that's not to say that Roth contributions may not be appropriate for some of you too. So certainly worth considering. So I'll stop for a second on the contribution piece just to see if there's any questions. I'm guessing there aren't, but let me stop and see if there is. Yeah, who wants to go first? Lee, go. I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Taxable, non-taxable, provided all contributions are qualified. What do you mean qualified?
Meaning, let me go back and make sure I'm reading the same thing. Oh, I went too far. Oh, okay, good question. If you have a Roth contribution, in order for those earnings to come out tax-free, they have to be in the plan at least for 5 years. So if you do this in the last year and retire, those earnings that you get will be taxable if you take them out. So there is a 5-year rule that the IRS puts on those Roth contributions. And thank you very much for that question. Yes, you were next.
I got both Roth and traditional 401k. When it's time to take the money out, you can take it from one that's very specific, either Roth or non-Roth.
Yeah, you can call us, when you're ready to take a distribution, you can call us up and specify what you want to take. Yes?
Which money you
Yeah, good. Right, the question was, can you specify if you have after-tax or pre-tax, when you take the money out, can you specify? And yes, you can.
401k, is that only applicable to full-time or can part-time get it?
Part-time can participate.
And my second part of the question is, for part-timers, they chose to, if they're over 50 and they up their increase, can they put their entire net pay into, or gross pay into either one of those 401ks?
The question was first if part-timers could participate, and then secondly, what's the maximum you could put in. So first, yes, part-timers are eligible to participate. The maximum for everybody is 1 to 35% of your pay for either pre-tax or Roth. If you decide you could do 17 pre-tax and 18 Roth, the cap is 35% total. There's also an after-tax, I'll say a more traditional after-tax contribution that's available in the plan. This is just after-tax money that doesn't have the Roth clarification so that the earnings grow, but they are taxable when you take the earnings out on just a traditional after-tax. Those are limited to 5%. Okay?
If I can leave my money in after retirement, can I still add to this at all, or is it this deduction from the paycheck only for UPS?
Good question. The question, and I got this one earlier today, am I able to contribute after you stop working? And the answer is no, it's only payroll deductions. You do have the ability, if you've worked somewhere else during your career and you have another retirement, I'll say a qualified plan, another 401k plan account with another employer somewhere, you do have the ability to roll that over or consolidate that into this plan. Again, maybe it's a better deal, the fees may be lower in this plan, so it's worth considering. Plus, it also helps you by having one pot of money to manage it a little bit easier from an investment perspective. You only have one set of beneficiaries and things like that. But to your question, you do need to be working in order to contribute ongoing to the plan.
Are you able to roll that over? Say, for instance, a retiree is very young, and they go and work 20 years for their local city or something, and create another 401k. Are they able to put that in, roll that over just like they would pre-retirement?
To the other employer or into this plan?
Into this plan.
If you are still working for UPS, then you can roll that money in here.
Okay.
Once you've separated service from UPS,
Then no more funds.
then no more money comes in.
Done.
Can the rollover happen at any time, or is it only during the open enrollment period?
Anytime. Rollovers can happen anytime, again, as long as you're working. And I saw another hand go. only yours. Only, no spouses, so if your husband or wife is working, at Target and they want to roll their money in, they can't do it. It has to be your account, tied to your social security number. Yes, in the back.
What age are you forced to start taking withdrawals?
If you are working, there is no age. If you stop working age 70 and a half, you have to start taking a minimum required distribution at 70 and a half. That is not your whole account balance. We actually calculate that for you based on IRS. They publish tables every year, and it's a formula basically that calculates the amount based on your age and life expectancy and things like that. And so if you don't do anything, if you are no longer working and over 70 and a half, you'll start getting a check once a year, but it's not your whole account.
Is it just like a
Yes.
Do you mean still working at UPS or still working anywhere?
Still working at UPS from this plan. Right.
Well, we're talking age, what's the minimum age to take money out without penalty?
Yeah, there's a lot of withdrawal questions. I'll answer that quickly because I have a few slides to show you on that. The short answer though, there's a couple of options for you to take your money out of the plan. There's a loan option, there's a hardship withdrawal option, but if you're 59 and a half, you can take a distribution from the plan. You will pay taxes, but you won't pay a penalty tax. So we are required to withhold 20% on a distribution like that. So if say you're 60 and you want to take $10,000 out of the plan, you can certainly do that. When we mail you the check, we are required by the IRS to withhold 20% for taxes. However, there's also, you may have heard or seen a 10% penalty tax out there. That does not apply to someone who takes a distribution after 59 and a half. So that's your sort of key date. There is another circumstance if you are no longer working, you're separated from service or terminated at 55, that 10% penalty may not apply either.
Can you clarify that for me? That's what I'm interested in.
Okay.
So that's under the zone.
Yeah, you have to be considered, we would have a date of separate, you no longer work and you're over 59 and a half, over 55. So the event that allows you to take a distribution is the fact that you are now considered a terminated employee. So you're eligible to take money whenever you've ceased employment with UPS. However, if you're under 55 and you do that, not only will you pay the 20% automatically, you may be subject to a 10% penalty. At 55 and a termination status, you don't pay the 10% penalty.
As long as I'm no longer working for UPS and I'm over 55, I can avoid the penalty.
That's right.
What if you're retired, you pass away, and you use this money in the 401k? Is that directly to your wife right away, or does it stay in the fund a while?
It will go to whoever you have identified as a beneficiary. If you don't have one, and if you're single, it goes to your estate. If you're married, it goes to your wife, and then to your estate. So one of the things that's key, came up earlier too, stay current on your beneficiary. You can do it right with us, call us up, do it over the phone, online. Keep your beneficiary status updated so that we know that. But the plan has a very specific hierarchy if there isn't a beneficiary in terms of where it goes. Again, if you're married, it goes to your spouse. If there's no spouse, it goes to the estate. And that's the way, the plan's pretty basic that way. While you may be eligible for distribution, I'm not sure if the penalty may, I'll have to look. I don't know off the top of my head if the penalty applies in a disability scenario. I can look when we're done and get back to you. Okay. All right, I'll keep going. There's a few pages on distribution, so we can go over this a little bit more. The next couple pages is talk about the investment options. So I want to make sure you're aware of what's available in the plan. So a couple ways to look at this. Some folks are very comfortable with investments. Others have no idea and are completely not comfortable. I just want to point out some of the tools that the plan makes available for you to sort of cover you either way. First option, if you want to do this yourself, this is just a listing of the funds available in the plan. And this kind of just lists them out by style or type. So on the top, you can see fixed income. You see all these Bright Horizon funds. These are target date funds, so these would be, you may have heard these or read about these. They're professionally managed funds. You basically pick the fund that coincides with your year of retirement. And the money is essentially managed for everyone in that fund based on that time frame. Okay? So if I'm going to retire in, well, I talked to someone earlier today, 2020, next year, I'm in that fund. If I'm going to retire in 2060, I choose the 2060 fund. Those folks who joined the plan or start joining today, if they don't make an election or they're defaulted into the the target date fund that matches their age or their retirement date. So if you don't do anything, that's where your money will be defaulted or be invested that way. There's also a balance fund, which is just essentially a static 60-40 allocation, so 60% stocks, 40% bonds, which is appealing to some folks. You get a little bit of equity exposure as well as fixed income exposure. And then down the right-hand side of the page, different equity funds. So you see S&P, which is a large cap, so big companies, mid-cap companies, small-cap companies, international and real estate fund. Then there's a stable value fund, which is basically those who are completely risk averse and they want to know that they have just one stated interest rate and that's where they're going to stay. And then at the bottom right, there's a brokerage account option, or a self-managed account it's called. And this is handled through Dreyfus. And this is an option where you don't like these options that are available in the plan. You're comfortable, you like to do research on investments, and you want to be able to invest in specific securities, meaning you don't buy funds, you buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You have the ability to go do that. There's a way you do it is just log in. You can transfer money from your core funds to the self-managed account option if you'd like to. There is a minimum. You have to have at least $7,500 in your account to do it, and that first transfer has to be $2,500 in order to open it up. And then as you do trades, you're paying for those trades. Stock trades, mutual fund trades, bond trades. So there's commissions and other charges that apply every time you move money within a brokerage account. When you move money among all these options, there's no fees, there's no transaction charges associated with those. But if you choose to go down that self-managed option, that's where those additional trading fees might apply to you. And there's a schedule out there. You'll get a lot of disclosures about that before you sign up for it. But that is an option for those people that are more, I'll say more aggressive investors, and they want more choice than what the plan and what the trustees have offered. Okay? We talked about the target date funds. I've listed them on the prior page. This is just mentioning that is another option for you. Advice. I mentioned earlier that I can't, or Prudential can't tell you where to put your money. But the plan does offer an investment option for you, or an investment advice option for you, which really has two levels to it. It's provided through Morningstar, and it's an online tool that, you can get right from the website. And the first level, as you can see in all bold there, it says investment advice. So you'll answer a series of questions, talk about what your risk structure is, how long you have to retire, and things like that. And Morningstar will recommend a specific investment allocation for you. In other words, tell you where to put your money, okay? That happens right at that point in time, and it's up to you to go back in and decide if you want to update it or change it. At any point, you can go do that. Essentially, it's a one-and-done, point-in-time investment process. The next level is the second bullet, which is managed accounts. And this is where you'll go through a similar process. You'll answer questions that Morningstar asks, but then they will take control. And they will manage and invest your money in accordance with all those questions you've answered. They'll even recommend how much you should save in the plan, so they could potentially change your deferral rate for you. They will monitor that for you. They become a fiduciary on your account. And there is a fee associated with that if you're interested in using it. So the first one, the point-in-time advice, one time, no fee. The managed account, which Morningstar will then ongoing, they will manage your account for you. There is a fee, it's 20 basis points per year. So if you had a $10,000 account balance, that would be $200 a year that they would charge. And it comes right out of your account, you can see it as a deduction. Okay? So I think, broadly speaking, the plan does cover hopefully the needs of all participants, in that if you're comfortable to do things on your own, you have a menu of choices to go from. If that menu is too small for you, you have that self-managed or brokerage account. If you're just looking for some professional management, but you don't really know what to do, the target date funds are a good option. And then if you want really truly outside investment advice, you can use that Morningstar tool that's available. All of these are on the website, and there's a lot of detail on each one, so if you click on them, you'll get all the specifics on how to use it, if there's a fee, what it is, and so forth. Okay? So we talk about distributions now. At the high level we talked about earlier, age 59 and a half, the plan does have some loan options available. Really, these are the specific reasons that you can take a loan. And I know it's small print. When you go online or call us to inquire about taking a loan, all of the details in terms of what do you need to do to qualify for a loan are right there. So for those in the back that can't see it, the specific items are the purchase of a primary residence, to pay for college, basically for you or your children, to prevent eviction or foreclosure on your primary residence, unreimbursed medical expenses, funeral expenses for either parent, spouse, or beneficiaries, or dependents, expenses to repair your primary residence, and then lastly, which is a more broad term, which is immediate and heavy financial need that cannot be satisfied by other means. So that's a relatively new provision that the plan added to essentially give, not everybody can qualify for these other IRS-determined options. So the plan did sort of make an amendment to allow a little more flexibility there to give you options if you're in a hardship situation to take a loan. For that last one, that immediate and heavy need, you do have to, the need must be at least $2,500 to do it. Normally, if you just take a loan for these other reasons, it's a minimum of $1,000. And then on the top end, there is a cap. The maximum is $50,000. And that would include if you worked at, let's say in the non-union plan at UPS at some point, so you have an account balance with Voya, for example, as well as with Prudential, the two balances have to be combined or looked at to see what your maximum available is. So we have to account for all of your 401k retirement plans with UPS in that calculation. But the point is, you have a loan option available. There are very specific reasons that you can get it, and they're very, right in your face when you try to apply for them online. It should be pretty easy to tell. But if not, if you have questions, you can call us, and we'll help you through that. The other options here, and we'll talk about these 4 bullets, for example. I mentioned this earlier. If you have more than $1,000, you can leave your money there as long as you want. You don't have to make a decision at some, when you decide to retire. If you don't need this money and you're comfortable leaving it in the plan, leave it there. It's entirely your choice. You can take a cash distribution. You can also take a partial withdrawal. So I want to take $20,000 out, but that's it. I'll leave the rest in. You can do that, of course. You can also take installments. So I want to take $1,000 a month. I want to take $5,000 twice a year. You can specify the period. You can take installment payments. That's an option for you as well. And then lastly, you can certainly take your entire balance out and roll it over to someone else, meaning another, like an IRA or something like that. You can also take that distribution as cash. Those last two, a couple of warnings I mentioned earlier. If you're going to roll it over, do your research into where you're going to roll it over to. Make sure you understand the fees that institution or individual is going to charge you to manage that money, just to make sure it's the right deal for you. And if you're using a financial advisor, ask questions. Ask them how they get paid. One thing you want to see, and many financial advisors nowadays are much more likely to be able to say to you, yes, I'll just charge you a flat fee every year versus a percentage of your assets. Because that's where the fees grow, is when they're charging you on a percentage basis. So don't be shy about asking what the fees are if you're going to do a rollover. And then if you're going to take a lump sum distribution and you have a lot of money in there, please, please, please talk to a tax advisor before you do that. If you take that money out, it's out. You are paying taxes on it. You might have penalties on it. Be aware that it might not be the best thing for you to do. So talk to an advisor, talk to a tax advisor before you take a lump sum out of the plan. Yes, the question.
Quick question. after you retire, if you opt to leave your money where it is, are you still able to reallocate it? Like you are, like
Yes.
Morningstar and all that sort of thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the question for everyone in the back, if you leave and you leave your money in the plan, are you able to continue to allocate it? You have all the privileges, basically, that everyone else does, just, you can't, take loans at that point because you can't pay them back, because they're paid through payroll deduction. But otherwise, everything else that's available in the plan, you have access to. You're still a participant, all the same rights. Yes?
Yeah, to her point, what's a good way to reallocate it? Like if you're in an equity fund, it's Tuesday and the markets are open, and let's say I don't want any exposure, as much exposure to market swings anymore, so I'm looking at moving from an equity to stable value. How do you time that, and how do you really, how do you do that?
Okay, so I think I understand the question is you're paying attention to the market, you're seeing a lot of volatility. How do you manage that? And I guess I'll use my caveat earlier. I can't tell you what to do with your money, but what I would say is use an option. Remember that this plan is for retirement, so you don't want to be the one that reacts to the market changing, because while the market went down 500 points on Thursday, it came back almost 300 points yesterday. If you're going to start switching money out every time the market jumps, you might miss the opportunity to rebound. So, I'm not sure, are you asking sort of the mechanics of how to do it?
Well, a lot of us here are real close to retirement. It might be February 1st this winter. So it's time to not be so much.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do that on the website? I think I did it years ago, like when the Magellan Fund went away. I just did it all with breaks. How would that's still possible to move some within the website itself, within Prudential itself?
Yes. You can either call us. Our call center is available 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. So our representatives can initiate transfers for you. If you do it after 4 o'clock, it won't happen until the next day, because the stock market closes at 4. You can do it online anytime, move your money around. You can do it every day. There's no limit on how often you move your money or where you move it to. Okay. No, there's no fee for those changes among all the options within the plan. If you use the brokerage account window, the self-managed, yes, there's trading fees that may apply there. But among the funds within the plan, there's no fees each time. Well, the question was the advantage of pre-tax versus after-tax, and really that's just a question of you're going to pay taxes at some point. The IRS will always get their hands on what is due. The question oftentimes is the pre-tax, the thought process being, I'm going to put my money in on a pre-tax basis throughout my career. That grows with earnings on a pre-tax basis as well. And the assumption that when I retire, I will hopefully or likely be in a lower tax bracket than I was while I was working, so maybe the taxes I paid down the road will be less than they would be from the beginning. That's essentially what the 401k benefit does. So does that kind of get to what you're asking? I saw a couple other hands. If you have a loan that's outstanding when you retire, you have 90 days to pay it back. If you don't, then when you'll ultimately, it'll essentially go into default, and it basically gets tax reported as a distribution. You don't have to take the rest of your account out, but that outstanding loan becomes due and payable at the point of retirement, and then if you don't pay it back within 90 days, then we'll have to tax report it. Yes?
Are there other companies that UPS owns that put into this plan? Like these guys, the cartage guys? Can they put into this still?
I believe they are now contributing as Teamsters, right? This is only for folks that work for UPS and our Teamsters. That's this plan only. Okay. Yes?
I was wondering if you could speak to the Roth. When our children inherit that, would you happen to know what the tax consequences for them would be? We're talking about pre-tax and after-tax while we're alive, but how about after we're gone? You may or may not be able to speak to that.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not sure I could. I think the, if your money is left to an estate or your beneficiaries are your children, they have to take the money out of a plan within a certain number of years. And at that point, they'll pay tax the same, I believe. As long as that Roth money was in there for 5 years though, I would assume it's qualified. In other words, the Roth and its earnings would be non-taxable. But I'm not sure that that's accurate.
But on that, the estate is, I believe, would that not fall under the estate part of that?
Right. I should get it.
Good question. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
You can pass it on to generation.
And you'll get that answer from us, unfortunately, when you call. I'll apologize now if it frustrates you, but the tax laws in each individual situation are just too much for us to be able to answer. And I'm going to move quickly through the rest here. The hardship withdrawals we talked about, similar reasons to the loans. And if in order to take a hardship, you have to take a loan or other options that are available under the plan first. The website, you can look at all of your account information here. There's the picture of it. You can do all the transactions we talked about, change your deferral rate, change your investments, update your beneficiary information. And then there's access to lots of tools. And I'll give you the website address and the phone number coming up. I'm going to skip, this is the website. One thing I'll point out, I know Jared had talked about a calculator earlier. There is a retirement calculator on our website that I would encourage you to use. And what you can do with that is, not only will it include your 401k balance, if you've done the pension calculator and you know what the pension is going to provide, you might have an outside asset. You might want to talk about your spouse's 401k. You can decide whether to factor in Social Security benefits or not. You might have a military pension. I know someone mentioned that earlier. If you go through this calculator that we have, you can input all of that one time, and it will give you, it'll spit out sort of an assumption on if you wait till retirement, say you said 65 or 62, you decide. This is what, based on all of the input you gave us, the assumptions you've given us, this is what you could reasonably expect as monthly income for the rest of your life. So this calculator will take all of the inputs of all your assets that you have, that you put in, and calculate every single time you log into the website, it recalculates. Now, if the pension benefit changes year to year, you need to go in and update the total, but your market value will change in the 401k every day. So this thing, every time you log in, it'll recalculate for you. So it's a nice tool because you can pull in all of your different financial situations as well as your spouses if you want to factor that into the calculations too. And this is right on the website, right when you log in, you're going to see this calculator as an available option. So I would encourage you to use it. There's a lot of other tools that are available. There's a financial assessment that you can go through. This goes beyond retirement. This will talk to you about, credit card debt. Do you have a will? Do you have an estate? These are the things you want to think about or consider as you're considering retirement. So while it's always good to talk to a professional here, there's a lot of excellent reading material and videos that you can watch that talk about these same things to maybe help you come up with some questions when you do meet with those professionals. And everything is available. There's no charge. You use it as long as you're a participant. You have access to all this. There's an app if you want to download the app to look at your account balance. And I'll let you take a picture before I jump ahead quickly. Good. Here's the last page. You see the mobile app. There's a website address. It's Teamsters UPS 401k plan. If you're interested and you have an Alexa at home, you can set up a skill within Alexa that you can say, Alexa, what's my 401k balance today? And she'll spit it out. I did it with my account. I thought it was pretty cool, but then I realized I don't want anybody to know what I have in my account balance. So I shut it down. But if you like gimmicky things like that, we have that. And then there's an 800 number there that's specifically for this plan that you can call. It goes to our service center to help you with any questions. I'm sorry? The website is that if you go to either, you can go to Prudential, the App Store, it's just Prudential Retirement. Yep, yep. Yeah, maybe I didn't have it back. Yeah, we didn't see the name, but that's what it looks like if you're gonna do it. It's on, both Google and the Apple Store. And it's just a Prudential Retirement app. Okay, last page. Just plan fees. I spent a lot of time sort of praising these at the beginning, and I realized it's the last slide for you to see them. But you'll see the investment expenses. You'll see the average is 2.5 or 2.5 basis points, which in dollars would be $2.50 for every $2.50 for every $10,000. The administrative fees, $23.50. You'll see that come out of your account every month. It's $1.96 per month. You'll see that deducted if you look at the transactions on your account. Plus, there's also a 10-cent per month administrative charge that's also taken out of your account. Then if you decide to take a distribution or a transaction, there's $10 to take a distribution out of the plan. If you take a loan, there's a one-time $75 loan charge, and then annually you'll be charged $25 each year the loan is outstanding. And that's, aside from that, the only other fees would be if you use that self-managed account, there's a fee and trading fees associated with that. And if you use that Morningstar advice tool that I mentioned, and you use the managed account piece of it, there's an annual fee associated with that. Yes?
Are you saying that if you wanted to set up $1,000 a month coming out of your 401k, you would pay $10 every time you did that for that distribution?
No, not for installments.
Okay.
This would be if you take a lump sum distribution, you're going to pay $10 and you'll get your check. But if you do installments, there's a one-time setup fee and you don't pay the fees. Yeah. Good question. Okay, well, I guess I'll just wrap it up then by saying thank you for your attention. It's great to see all of you here today because I just read a story yesterday that said most Americans would rather go skydiving than take the time to talk about retirement planning. Now, I don't know about you, but the older I get, every year that goes by, I am more afraid of heights than the year before. And skydiving is not where I want to go. So thanks for taking the time. It's important, and I appreciate you paying attention.
Well, that brings us to the end. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up, and I hope it was informative. Jared and Bill, I'm on the UPS pension fund, so I see them every 2-4 times a year. If you have any questions, let me know. I can relate to them. I sit on the fund also with Tom for Wilson Machine, and I see him every month. So again, I thank everybody, and also Tom Booker is on the fund. At the back there we got Larry, so for the spouses, when you hear that my visiting is Larry. Larry's at the back there. We got Steve Saviola, Tony Winchester, Scott Lacey out there, and I just wanted to get more information. I think that's it. Once again, thank you and safe travel.